everybody. It's really great to be speaking with you today. I hope you'll ask me plenty of questions as well. So, as Gigi was saying, I'm going to talk a lot about the different jobs that I've had. And the reason why I've picked this topic is because I think the same will be for you. When you're thinking about what you might do in the future, there's a good chance that some of those jobs that you'll be doing don't exist yet either. But that's okay, isn't it? Because it was good for me and it will be great for you as well. And I'm wondering too, if you've heard of any or thought of any cool jobs already, listening to Tim talk about Adobe and all the great things you can do on the Adobe products. I know I've used them all the way through my career and I still use them and they're fantastic. They have a great team behind them. There's always great tutorials and ways to learn, and they do make you look really good. Or maybe you've heard of jobs already but before today and then you're thinking of those as well. If it was if you're like me, you might have more than one job that's on your list, things that you might do one day. I've always been curious and can never do just one thing. That's the sort of person that I am, and it turns out that there's a word for it too. So let me share my screen and we'll get talking. Fantastic. So, as I was saying, there is a word for people like me that can't just do one thing. It's a slushy. And it means people that have multiple titles, multiple job titles at the one time. I'll give you an example. These are some of the slushy job titles I've had throughout my career. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but I would love you to have a quick read while I'm talking. And if any of them interest you and you want to ask a question, please do, because I can answer them at the end. Tim mentioned the competition that they've dropped the link in as well. And he's talking about, besides creativity, what are some other skills that you need? The two things that I have used throughout my career, all the way through, and have put me in good stead every time, are curiosity and the courage to ask. So please be curious and please ask. I also want to know too, and you can pop this in the chat as well, what would your ideal slushy combination be right now? If someone said to you, what are you going to do right now? What would be your slushy career? If someone had asked me this question at high school, I'm thinking back, I would have said, let's see, my main job would be a musician. That's what I wanted to be. But I also loved maths. I love the problem solving. I kind of wanted to be a detective. Would I be a musician / detective? But I also really liked English and storytelling, and I loved art and making things. I always thought I'd be an artist. So maybe I'd be a musician / detective / artist, but I also liked fashion. There were so many things that I really liked doing. So I'm wondering if you're thinking of similar things. And the great thing about being a slushy all the way through my career is that you can have like one main job that you do, but then be trying some other things out on the side to think, well, maybe I might move into this or move into that. And it's also handy if you get to a point where you don't know what you want to do, you can try multiple things at once. So it can be a bit of a balancing act, but having a slushy kind of career where you're working on exploring things, multiple things that you're interested in, is that you develop for yourself a really unique skill set. And this is really valuable. I think Tim touched on it as well. By looking at ways that you can combine all of your interests and bring all of the things that you're interested into your career makes you really valuable, because you're really excited about and passionate about what you do, but it's that unique combination that not many other people have that makes you really valuable. And I'm going to talk to you a bit more about this when I talk about my current job and the current team I'm working in. But first, I want to talk to you about how I got started as a coder in my early career, and I used a lot of Adobe products as well. It's a bit of a funny story. I was really wanting to be a musician, and I was studying music at ANU, and I went over to New York to see and find out what it was like to be a real musician in New York. So while I was there, living with other real musicians and seeing what their life was like, I worked out pretty quick that this wasn't the life for me. And I was in an art museum that was massive. And I got lost at this big art gallery, and I was starting to feel quite anxious. I was there by myself and I just needed to get out. And so I went to a security guard and asked him, I was about to ask him, how do I get out? And he said to me, oh, are you here for this Mariko Mori exhibition? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And so I went into this exhibition, and it turns out for the first time in my life, I saw an artist who was animating her own sort of animations, sort of like film clips. She was composing the music, she was creating the costumes, she was putting all this 3D animation into it. She was doing all of those things that I was interested in at high school and putting it all in the one thing. So I had an amazing epiphany. And if you think about all those great tools that Tim was just talking to you about, you can see how Adobe can help you make all of this happen at once as well. And that for me was a real changing point, and I realized I didn't have to do just one thing. I could be a slushy, even though I didn't know that was the word for it. So when I came back to Australia, I found out that you could study this, and I started to study it as part of my jazz degree, and I learnt to code. And I was using a program called Adobe Flash, which no longer exists. But this is what it looks like. This was what my day at the office would look like. So you can see I've got this visual thing where I'm doing the art stuff, the pictures. Down the bottom, you can see sort of a timeline that looks a bit like a music score. And what you can't see is all the coding that I got to do as well. So this was like a slushy in a window. I could do art, sort of coding and animation all in one application. And I love this job so much. To give you an idea of some of the work that I did, I made some really basic sort of web games and interactive things for clients like Vodafone and Toyota. I also made educational games for the National Museum of Australia. I also worked on all kinds of projects with really different industries and different topics. So at one time I was working on a project for the Army about their helicopters and training their helicopter pilots how to fold the rotor blades, what all the different components in the cockpit meant and how to use them. I also worked for Passports Australia. I did a piece for them where we were teaching the passport staff how to detect fraud in a passport and what to look for. So you can see that having this digital career has meant, even though I was working on this same sort of screen every day, I was working on really diverse topics and learning all kinds of things about all kinds of things. And so I was always something interesting to do and always learning. And I got good at this by asking people to help me. I got good at this by reading books and Googling. In this day and age, I'd probably YouTube a lot of things, but I also spent a lot of time just working on projects and spending a lot of hours just coding as well. So that's how I got good at it, and lots of getting things wrong and trying again and keep trying and keep trying until you could get it right. One time, I'll share another story. Towards the end of when I was coding, I was working on a big online magazine in London, and by then I was working back here in Wangaratta. I'd been over to London and I'd moved back here, and I was still working for this company, and we had this really cutting edge flash magazine that we were building, and they flew me back just for the launch or just for the deadline. So for the last 2 weeks of the project, they flew me back to London and put me up in a hotel, and we there was a project team of about 12 of us just working around the clock to get this thing finished, and it was just eating pizza and coding. It was that real sort of web development life that you hear about. But it was really intense, and sometimes you do really long hours, but it was always fun. I want to show you a little bit now about the sort of work I do now. So that's coding, and now I'm working in a much bigger team, and the sort of digital projects I work on are a lot more vast. It covers a lot, which I'll get into, but I'll explain a little bit about GHD first. So they're an Australian company. We have about 10,000 staff around the world. It's owned by its employees, and I work from their Wodonga office. And this video is going to explain to you a little bit about what we do, and you'll see our office in Melbourne and some of my teammates and my bosses, and you'll get a feel for what this looks like when you work in a place like GHD. So let me just press play.
GHD Digital was born with a single vision: to help our clients transform their business, embrace the future, and change communities for good. The way we live and the way we work is changing at a rapid pace. Disruptive forces are impacting industry sectors such as water, environment, energy and resources, buildings, and transport. As students and leaders of digital innovation, we realize organizations can no longer survive operating business as usual. Owners of critical infrastructure and assets must think and act differently in order to drive cultural change and rapidly transform their organizations. Unprecedented change evokes an urgency and responsibility to design a better future together. Simply waiting it out is not an option. Today, the question isn't, do we need to change, but just how fast? GHD Digital is uniquely positioned to answer this question. People first and outcomes obsessed, we combine industry insights with digital mindsets to maximize opportunities for growth and success. Change isn't easy, but it is possible, and the benefits will see you thrive for a lifetime. GHD Digital, transform for good.
So that gives you a bit of an idea. And these are some of the words that describe the work that we do with digital that you can have a look at and ask me about as well. I'm focused mostly on the digital innovation and human-centered design part of this, but it just goes to show you how having a digital career, you can get into all kinds of interesting things. And even if it's not the only thing that you do, just having those digital skills like what Tim was talking about, even with some knowing your way around some great Adobe products, can unlock all kinds of exciting projects and things for you to work on and exciting people to work with as well. So it's just fantastic. So this is, again, ask me about any of this. I want to finish up though. Oh, I did want to point out, sorry, that we are not the hair straightening company. It's an engineering company that I work for. I want to finish up before we go to questions, just to explain again why I love my job. It's because I'm always learning every single day. And I love, especially at GHD Digital, the diversity of the humans that I get to work with and the projects I get to work on. We're all slashies. We all have such amazing backgrounds. They're not all digital. We don't all have PhDs in computer science. We've got these amazing diverse backgrounds, different ages, different nationalities. We live all around the world, and it's really fun working together. So think about your slashy career and that unique skill set that you're going to keep developing all the way through your career. One thing that's really important to me is that I really understand that when I'm working with GHD, that we are working to make the world a better place, and we can really do that, and we can actually have an impact in making it a better place. So if you're thinking for your career, you want to make the world a better place with whatever that you do, it's really important, I think, to have some digital skills in there, because we need that human element combined with the tech element always. And then there's some really simple things I love about my job too, just being able to work, live wherever I want to and keep working is fantastic. This lockdown period has really shown that. It's been hard, and I'm sure it's hard for all of you too, but I love the work that I do, and that's helping me to get through. And the fact that I can still stay connected with people all around the world is a great thing. It's never boring, and that's really important for me. I'm at my best when I'm learning things and working with great people on cool projects. So if that sounds like you, please ask me some questions. I will now hand over to you.
Yeah. Oh, we have a few questions here for you.
Great, Gigi.
Was it difficult to do all those jobs at once? How did you do that? How did you manage that? Yeah.
Yes, I think that I'm a bit of a natural juggler, and I like to have a few things. So I usually have one main thing that I do and a couple of things on the side, and sometimes they do compete. But I also find that they feed off each other. So if one of my jobs I'm feeling like not that it's getting boring, that it might be really hard, it's nice to have something else that might be a bit creative or just a little bit on the side, a bit fun, and not as stressful. They're the sort of things that I like to do, but I always have one that I'm really committed to.
Yeah. What was your favorite career out of all those slashy options?
Oh, I like to think that I haven't had my favorite bit yet. The thing that I really liked the coding and the making something, and then having something that I've made and putting it out. But I also really love building communities and connecting people together. I think this comes from playing in a band. I used to love playing in big bands, and hearing all that big sound. So when I work on projects now, I always think about it like a band, and I'm thinking, who are we going to put in our band and what sort of music are we going to make? So I don't have a favorite, and I think that's why I think I'll keep being a slushy, because there'll be new things that I want to do all the time.
Yeah. So pre-pandemic, did you work from home or in the office, and which one do you prefer?
I think I need to do a little bit of both, but honestly, I've worked from home since I came back from London in 2005. Actually, there was a time in London where we were on public transport and there was some really terrible bombs happened. And from that day, I started to work at home a lot more. And that's when I realized I could actually work from anywhere and still be connected, because I just need an internet connection to work. But what I didn't realize when I moved back to Wangaratta and I kept working from home was that you can get isolated, and that I still need people to talk to, and I still need to feel part of a team. So I think it's important to I love working from home, but I need to get into the office and still make sure I'm talking to people.
Yeah. Who started GHD Digital?
GHD Digital was started in Melbourne by the current they call him the president of GHD Digital, Kumar Parakala, but GHD stands for Guthrie, Huskinson and Davies, and they were three men that started the engineering company 94 years ago in Australia. So it's a really old Australian company with a new digital part.
Yeah. What does immersive reality mean? And how is it a job?
Yeah, this is a fun job. This is something I could do more of. So that is just building out those three-dimensional environments. So you're talking about your virtual reality or virtual environments where you feel like you're in a different world. We use it even in GHD when we're doing consultations for communities, because we can't because of the lockdown, we've created virtual sort of rooms where they can come in and understand a project. So it might be like a new train line coming into their community, or a new road, or changes to their roads or their cities. And we can build out like a room that has all of that project information, and they can just feel like they're in the room and checking out the different bits of information, and they can interact with it, leave comments and things.
Yeah. What was the biggest project you have worked on at GHD?
The biggest project I work on with GHD is this Smart Seeds program, where it's a really fun job. I'm so glad to have it. We have an innovation program where we get people who are sort of 3 to 6 years in their career, and we think of the complex challenges that are facing our world to do with climate change, changing to renewable energy, looking at how our future cities might look, and we get them to form teams with people they haven't met before. We give them one of these challenges and say, what could you come up with that's fresh or innovative about this challenge? And then we take them through a process that's based on a thing called design thinking, where we help them go through this new way of learning how to work together and think of a problem differently, to then come up with some fresh thinking around this solution. And it's like giving them a really fun project as part of their jobs, and they get to meet people from all around Australia, all around the world while they do it.
Yeah. Can you combine music and IT in a career?
Absolutely, you can. And there are lots of ways that you can do this. So you could be writing music on computers. You can be doing experimental music with artificial intelligence. I can't think of the name, but you need to Google. There was a Eurovision submission where a couple of Australians made a Eurovision song using artificial intelligence to come up with a pop song. You can be working using Adobe products as well on creating video clips, or like the visuals, but in a concert as well. You remember those live concerts we used to go to? There's all kinds of things. What would you do about, I'm really fascinated to know about who are going to be our first musicians to go to space. We're going to need a lot of creatives when we recolonize other planets, and what are they going to be doing when they make music and they make art in space? It might be you.
Do you have any tips for a Year 10 student who is not sure about what they're going to do for their career?
Yes, I would pick something that you really enjoy doing, and do all of them. And it doesn't matter that you don't know it yet, what it is that you want to do, but just be pursuing the things that you're really curious about, and don't be afraid to ask to do it either. Ask for opportunities to go and do some work experience, and ask people what it's like, and that way you can figure out whether it's really for you or not.
How did you get offered a job at GHD Digital?
That's a really good question. Well, actually, I was their client. I was running a project up here in Northeast Victoria called Startup Shake Up, and the Smart Seeds program I was telling you about, that global program I'm now in charge of, we ran it here in Northeast Victoria. And when my job at Startup Shake Up finished, GHD were looking for someone to take over that role of Smart Seeds, and they approached me. They thought of me and just asked me.
Yeah. When you are in the office, how is the atmosphere? Do people treat you differently considering you a female?
That's a really great question. Definitely not at GHD. And in fact, in all of my IT career, I've not found it ever to be a negative thing that I'm a woman. I think in some ways it's helped me. I've worked in a lot of teams where it's mostly male, but mostly that's been okay. Sometimes I think, how can I explain this? It's a really good question. There's definitely different styles between sometimes the way men communicate or the way they behave versus women. But what working at GHD has really helped me to appreciate that it's much more than just a difference between being male or female. There's a whole diverse range of ways people interact and think. We've got a lot of neurodiverse people in GHD as well, and to really appreciate that and understand people's strengths in their differences is a really important thing.
How many virtual reality projects have you done?
I personally have worked only very early stages in my career on some virtual reality projects. And I know things have changed a lot since then. And it was one of those slashy sort of side hustle jobs where I was working with someone I knew through my music contacts who was I was helping them build up a library of virtual 3D objects to use in games and other things. So I was just helping them on the side because I liked working in that sort of software and I was just making things in 3D for them to use in other things.
Yeah. What are some careers where music and IT are related? Maybe perhaps with gaming as well. I think they're just trying to mention if there's like music and gaming as a career.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's lots of things. So if you can study to be a composer, you can study to be a music like an arranger, a producer, even sort of like a DJ sort of thing. So there's lots of ways that you can make music electronically and digitally for all kinds of mediums, and you can make them for videos, you can make them for games. So if you're wanting to write and create music, that's a really big industry for not just playing it live, but also making music for like you were saying, games and animations and education, online learning, immersive reality, even things that are there's a lot of VR, virtual reality and immersive reality for therapy these days. So you can create music that's quite relaxing and calming for those sort of environments too.
I think we just have time for one final question. What is the best career decision you have ever made?
I think it's when that's a really good to listen to things when things aren't working, when your heart's no longer in it, and to be starting to think of other things as well. So my career decision has always been to follow the things that I'm really interested in and to be brave at learning new things. I've always learnt new things, from being a coder to then a project manager, now a community builder, and now I'm learning how to lead a global program and how do I deliver that in 10 different countries across the world and make all of that work financially too. So I'm always learning new things. I think the best decision you can always do is to do things that interest you and play to your strengths. And don't be afraid to stop doing things if it's no longer working for you either. I knew halfway through my music degree that I didn't want to be a musician.
Thank you, Emma, for your presentation.
Thanks, Gigi.